Sorry, for those of you who missed it, my name is Amy Cole. I do business operations at Instagram, work with the brands and the partners that are using the platform. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Instagram is a mobile photo sharing application. So as a user, you can take a photo and filter it if you want to with one of the filters that we have, make the photo look beautiful, and then share it within Instagram or share out to any number of social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, Tumblr. And then this is kind of a quick snapshot of Instagram. We have over 30 million users, over 1 billion photos posted to the site already. And this is actually a snapshot of what's happened in the past week. So these are all of the photos that have been posted in the past week, over 5 million photos posted per day. So I'm here to kind of help connect how content fits into this and how you reach all of these 30 million users.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Minkoff, fashion designer. So a little bit about the brand. This was our latest ad campaign with Agnes Dean. And something that we wanted to do during this campaign to make it different was she took over my Twitter and my Instagram. So during the photo shoot, you got to hear her thoughts and see pictures of the ad campaign as it was happening, which many users liked. This is our blog called Minkette. A while ago, some girls got together. They said, we're Minkettes, and we thought it was a nice way to show our thankfulness to them. So that's the blog. And lastly, just a little bit of our blogger presence, which we engage with on a regular basis. So you can see there are some of the girls that we have that are really supportive of the brand.
Hi, I'm Carla Dunham. I'm with Saks Fifth Avenue. I work with a team who's involved in kind of lifting the veil up on a pretty traditional luxury American retailer, and wanted to share with you a little bit today on how we do that. Behind me now, you can see some snapshots from our blog, which we called Saks POV. We consider the blog to be a point of view on everything Saks Fifth Avenue, and we enjoy working with our designers, such as Rebecca or Jason Wu here, in really giving an insider's view on what are the personalities behind the fashions that you all love. Moving forward, we're also really known for our designer shoe business. And if you're just visiting New York here for the conference, I encourage you to go to the 8th floor in our landmark store right on Fifth Avenue. It's a shoe department that's so big, it has its own zip code, and we wanted to take that excitement and that passion for shoes into the digital world. And so we launched a Tumblr where we show a different wonderful shoe every day, and we invite people to share it, interact with it. Sometimes we ask you to caption the photo. We're just all about the passion behind shoes. And then a few of our other platforms that we work with, we love Instagram. We think it's a really great way to give a snapshot of the brand and communicate all the color and excitement that we feel on a daily basis. And of course, we love Twitter, and we've also just gotten into Pinterest, which we think has a really wonderful application for making our online site shoppable in a new and personal way. I think the clip that you see there are great wear-to-work outfits, and we kept on thinking about if you're shopping the web, how does somebody such as Saks make it more personal, more relevant? How can we break it down for you so that it's really meeting your lifestyle needs?
Cool. I'm Noah Breyer. I'm the co-founder of Percolate. Theoretically, there's going to be a slide behind me in any second. Awesome. Percolate helps brands create content at social scale. So what we are really is a technology platform for brands that helps them solve this problem of how do I deal with the sort of glut of content that I need to be producing across Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere where it needs to go. So what we're essentially doing is helping a brand both figure out what sort of third-party content might be interesting for them to share, whether it's a link or a photo or a video, and also helping them manage all the content that they own and have produced in the past and help them figure out what platform to push that to and how to push it. That's Percolate.
Okay. Can you all just briefly give a quick overview of what you're doing in content-driven commerce? Why don't you just start with Noah and go back down the row?
Sure, yeah, we're just starting to work with a couple fashion brands that unfortunately I can't name yet, but we're working with them on Tumblr, which they're obviously really excited about, and really just helping them combine both their own assets, so whether it's photography or the actual fashion, with additional content from around the web.
And on Instagram, fashion is huge right now. Fashion has been really an early adopter because it just fits so well with a visual platform like Instagram. And now you're seeing, fashion brands using Instagram, but you're also seeing fashion publications, you're seeing fashion events covered on Instagram. I feel like, just seeing all of the kind of the string of fashion weeks that just happened, you see things happening from the designer's point of view, the models behind the scenes, all of the coverage that happens at the event. I feel like I had a better seat than being front row at the show itself. So, and we see a lot of activity around fashion. And especially, I think it's a great place for fashion brands to really think about how to tell that story, the story of their brand, and do it through content and through what they're posting on Instagram through their own account.
Well, all of the content that we profile through all of our social media channels is sold at Saks, and wherever possible, we do link an item that we're talking about and connect it back to our online site. But I think more globally, the way that we look at content driving commerce is around this whole notion of engagement and storytelling. And we really think that the first iteration of thinking about content is to begin to build an audience for who your brand is and who your brand can connect with. And content plays a really dynamic role in that. And then once you've got that relationship, you can begin to think about engagement and an eventual drive to purchase. But we're not necessarily thinking that every single item that we're putting out there is going to be perfectly clicked through by every single person who's reading the story. It's really about this conversation, this ability to tell stories and gain the visibility of the brand Saks Fifth Avenue.
I think for us, we took the view that Minkette was our hub, and from there, with all the social media outlets, we want to drive content to Minkette and then back out, so it's reciprocal. And one of the things we learned is by having a 360 view, so if we get something onto a blogger that's current, she's photographed in it, then we tweet it or Instagram it, and then simultaneously perhaps a celebrity is wearing it, or I'm wearing the shoes that day, that all that works together to create this traffic that goes to our site and people want this product. So it's grassroots. And sometimes you throw a bunch of things against the wall and it doesn't work, but then more often than not, it does. And we see that the more we're engaging on whether it be Pinterest or our blog or Instagram, Facebook, when it all works in tandem, that's when we see the most return on our investment for our website.
And I'm curious if our panelists could tell us, what is the best example you've seen of content-driven commerce, except for your own, starting with Noah?
Best example I've seen. Can we come back to me?
Sure.
Sure. Well, and I'm actually really excited to say there are a number of brands here speaking today, and especially I'm right on the panel, that have fantastic Instagram accounts and are really, really using it the right way. I'll let them kind of speak to what they're doing themselves, but I would say another example, one of my favorites to talk about is Tiffany's and what they're doing with their Instagram account. So
Wait, not Instagram. Best example besides your own.
Oh,
of content-driven commerce, not related to Instagram.
Oh, so another platform.
Correct. Or anything, a blog. It could be anything.
Well, I guess this kind of ties back in. It uses the example I was going to mention. Tiffany's is doing a lot with a campaign, but they're really pulling in a lot of different aspects. So it's not coming just from Instagram. They have a kind of a microsite set up, and they've really realized that they need to engage with consumers. So, they're asking for content posted on Instagram. Show us, what the campaign is, what makes love true. So what does this mean to you? And they're pulling in photos, but they also have, interactive maps of where people can click on where their love story happened and share that story. And then, sharing the content that they're, the products that go along with the campaign. And they're showing those across all the platforms. So they're showing them on their Instagram account. They're reaching out to them. It's similar to what Rebecca said, is, tying in all of these platforms and making it really be one holistic story that all kind of works together.
And I guess guess I would say, from my point of view, within fashion, we love what Burberry's doing. I think they've managed to take a brand that is so global, feel personal, feel exciting every day by sharing updates from Christopher Bailey, and it does feel as though you're getting the essence of a wonderful British brand. I really admire the work of Oscar PR Girl, because I think that's a brand that has been known for absolutely exquisite dresses, and she's given it a voice of being youthful and given it a reason for being in a whole new audience. I'm actually really interested as well in companies that are not immediately in fashion and how they're approaching all these new platforms and thinking about content as driving conversations that ultimately companies have a vested interest in participating in. And there's a recent Tumblr that was started, believe it or not, by Huggies, where they've kind of linked up this whole fascination with celebrity moms, and they've created this Tumblr all around moms and babies, and it's pretty fascinating to watch and to see the level of engagement. And of course, the product has a peripheral connection, but they really figured out how to connect with young mothers with an emerging technology platform in an area of interest, and I think it's quite brilliant.
I came across a blog in '07 called The Purse Blog, and they were talking about my bags, and I thought, wow, I'm going to engage with these girls. They have all these questions, let me answer them. And the growth that this blog has had, in addition to the forum that it has where its members talk about bags all day long, from every major brand to them being responsible for launching some new brands. So they drive traffic to many retailers. They also have a huge traffic that they drive to eBay. So what I've seen them do with their growth, with 300,000 plus girls talking all day about handbags, has been a really great example of these really fanatical, great girls talking about fashion and what they love, and it's driving commerce that way.
It's back to me now. So a couple ones that I've really liked lately, the Gap styled by stuff I think is a really neat way to sort of combine people from outside the brand with the clothes and create a new platform. And it'll be interesting to see how they sort of push that out across other channels. I also really like the stuff Puma is doing on Tumblr now, where they're trying to build a sort of voice that's bigger than the brand and kind of connects the different pieces, so whether it's sports and fashion and design. They seem to be doing a really good job there.
Okay. So now if everyone could talk a little bit about what is the relationship between content and commerce? Are people just having fun, playing, and fantasizing about what they wish they could buy, or are they actually buying things? And what is the purchase cycle and process, and how do you measure it? Can we start with Rebecca?
Sure. So I think everybody wants visual stimulation. So whether that be on Facebook or Instagram or your own blog, I think some people are there just to fantasize, and other people are really actively going, how can I have that style? How can I find that shoe? And they might not want to look on a regular site to find that item. They might, they might want to see how it's worn on someone. So I think that all those different ways make people want to shop. It makes me want to shop. Then it's directed to our site, and hopefully, you still like how it's styled and presented online. And, we try and go for the highest conversion rate possible, which I think is a challenge, and it's also exciting because your site is the face of your brand. So if people have a good shopping experience there, then most likely they'll pass that experience on and tell others.
I would agree, and I would say yes and yes, Kate, to what you said. I think that I look at it as we know these conversations are happening. We know that people are digesting images on their phone, and that there's an absolutely voracious appetite for information, entertainment. And I think that brands need to participate in order to be relevant. So is every image that you put out there perfectly correlated on a one-to-one click-through rate that you're driving a sale? I don't think so. I mean, the information that I read and talking to people, I don't think that's the way of driving measurement. But if we begin to think about content as having an audience, and that audience having a relationship with a brand, then we can look at measurement much more with a kind of a CRM model in mind, just as Rebecca was talking about, that it's all cyclical, right? So one day, I've made myself relevant to you, you're gonna come and find something interesting with me, you're going to have another reason to love the brand. You're going to see an image that you love. You're going to share it through your networks. It's top of mind. And when it comes time to get an actual bag or to buy an outfit or whatever it is, my brand is going to have a connection with you. And I think increasingly the metrics that are surrounding this space are going to be looking at a life cycle of engagement and not this more of a traditional digital metric where it's perfectly measurable in that instant, in that exact marketing push. And it's going to be more challenging but more exciting for marketers too, I think.
I completely agree. I'm going to echo a lot of what was said, but I think social media is really changing the way we interact online and the way content and commerce are related. It's not so much a direct click through where you're clicking on something that you necessarily want to buy, but it's really these things being present in your everyday, everything that you're going to, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and especially we see brands. Posting content, posting photos, and really telling that brand story. And as a user, when you're following a brand, you're building a relationship with them, and you're building this connection. And as if you are already Instagram users, the people that you're following, you build this emotional connection, and you feel like you have this little bit of window into who they are. And so maybe you're not directly clicking through on a purchase, but the next time you go shopping, the next time you're looking for a product, you're going to go to those stores and to those brands because you feel like you already know them and you already have a relationship. It's a perfect place for brands to really, show the content that they have, show people, this is what's trending, this is what's hot, and this is where you can get it, so that when they do want to go and make that purchase, it's in the back of their mind, and that's where they're automatically going to go.
Yeah, a lot of the work that we do approaches this from the other side. So we mostly work with really big brands like GE, where none of us in this room actually have something we could buy from them unless we're in the market for a wind turbine. It's always a question of how do you actually measure this stuff. And it's obviously much easier when you can track to purchase and do these things. But one of the ways that we've been thinking about it and working with clients is to say, well, actually what you have is these owned media channels, and you can split them up into content and ads. And your content is sort of everything you're producing, and then you produce it with the intent of raising the value of that ad space. Now, you're not going to sell that ad space, but you're going to use it to try to drive conversions and do that other, whether it's a new product or a new announcement, something where you really want someone to pay attention. But I think as you start to think of it in that way, then you can ideally start to actually measure the media value in a similar way to the way you're looking at media values on other platforms.
Can I add something to that? I think we have also seen inadvertently a reverse thing where maybe, for instance, we have these bracelets made of leather, and it wasn't getting picked up by stores, and we would start photographing them, and some of our most liked items on Instagram were these bracelets. So it actually taught us that there were things out there we weren't selling that people wanted. So now that instantly has translated into sales for us because now we're offering what the consumer has voted for. So I think it works, again, the opposite way, sometimes when you least expect it.
That's really interesting. I have a follow-up question for Carla. So if the content you're putting out there on social media is not producing a direct response, if it's not click and buy, and you're not measuring that, maybe it's more branding, and if that's the case, then how do you measure brand lift and brand engagement on social media?
So just one point of clarification, the merchandise that we do feature, it is click to buy, and we do measure it, we do. But I think that's one metric, right? I think it's not the full picture of why all of us are producing this content and why we're engaging with new platforms. I think it's too simplistic a model. I think that ultimately, if brands are being charged with telling stories and telling them more frequently in more places, then the content just has to kind of mushroom and grow with it. And the overall expectation around that production and around that engagement has to be more holistic around what the behavior is on the web. So, one of the things that we're looking at is how are people visiting our sites and then sharing the content. So not just liking it, but then also where are they going with that information, and how does that tell us about their overall path to purchase? Did I answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'd be interested in hearing from Noah and Amy. How can brands and retailers decide where to focus their resources? What would you recommend as a technology vendor and a social platform?
I think it's sort of hard right now in that there are now, 5 or 6 platforms that have a big enough audience that you really can't not be there, right? Like, I mean, obviously Facebook and Twitter being the 2 biggest, but now with Instagram and Pinterest and Tumblr, I mean, those seem like sort of 5 large enough audiences, especially if you're in a particularly visual brand, that it makes a lot of sense. I think, what we're trying to solve for is the questions around, how much overlap can there be between those? What's most appropriate on what channel? How do you sort of use content that you've created in the past and be able to push that out as part of that same stream? Because I think the challenge any brand is going to face over the next couple of years is, how do I create 40 to 60 messages a day that are going to need to go across all these different channels? And honestly, we're probably going to see 2 or 3 more in the next 2 or 3 years that will pop up and have the same sort of scale. So I mean, the audiences are there. The questions are really around, how can you engage? When you see what someone like Tumblr is doing now by adding, the paid components and being able to really build up an audience, these platforms are moving from being just sort of places where you're hoping somebody is listening to places where there's now a significant audience. I mean, it's not uncommon for brands to have over 1 million fans on Facebook, and it won't be uncommon for brands having over 1 million followers on Tumblr. Those are, going to start taking dollars away from advertising in the near future.
And I think, from a brand perspective, I think you want to, figure out where you're getting the most value for the time that you're putting in. So platforms like that, even if you have 1 million followers, how engaged are they? And what kind of interaction are you having with them there? And obviously, I think it's really important to make sure that you're going with the platforms that are, a natural fit for the brand and a fit for what your goals are with your digital strategy. I'd say, like for me, if Instagram is, a really great fit for a lot of fashion brands because it's so visual and you're using content that you already have created. So you're not spending a lot of extra time. You're just figuring out the best way to curate that content and to tell the story that you want to tell. And the other great thing about Instagram is that, you can push out to your other platforms and you can choose which ones you push out to. So, you can share with Facebook, share with Twitter, share with any of the platforms, Tumblr, that you want to use, and you can pick and choose. So, I think it's important to have an overall message that you want to share, but really figure out which platform, works best for which type of content and make those all work together. So you can choose where you're sharing that content to make the overall story.
So I have a few more questions for our panelists, but we're also going to take questions from the audience in about 5 minutes. So if anyone has a question, you'll see that there are microphones near the stage on each side, so maybe you could make your way to the microphone and get ready. So for Carla and Rebecca, can you talk a little bit about internally, how do you do it? How do you make the decision which platforms to be on and what content to develop for which platform? And then how do you allocate resources internally to do this? Because I think probably you could spend all your time creating content for social media and never do any designing or selling of clothes.
So I'm lucky in that I have a team which is very helpful in helping to create this content. Otherwise, it would be, as Kate points, I would never design a handbag or a shoe or apparel. So the team really focuses on first building out Minquette and really solidifying our relationships with our bloggers. They're our most important asset, and the relationships we develop with them are very strong. So that's one thing we're constantly working on, not just, having, sending them a bag, but engaging them. We have tea parties, we have champagne dinners, and really making sure that they're really supportive of the brand. And then from there, a lot of the content goes out, again, to Instagram. It's pictures of my son, it's pictures of my shoes almost every day, really making it personal. When we come off as trying to sell something, it doesn't usually work. So as personal as possible, and then from there we have, updates to Facebook and our Tumblr page and Pinterest, which is kind of those are the main ones that we use. So I would say that, it's a team of 3 right now, and then I'm also very engaged on making sure that I'm tweeting, I'm Instagramming, so the voice is mine, but I just have additional support so that I can focus on designing.
And from our perspective, I think it's an ongoing adjustment and evaluation of where is the sector going and how do we look at our team and our talent and best allocate it. I think the one thing I will say about the space in general, I think it keeps you really intellectually honest, and I think it keeps you really quick because you need to be able to adjust and have talent that can do the same. On a day-to-day basis, we absolutely look at what are our merchandise messages that are most important for the company and how do we make sure that we communicate those in a way that's going to really resonate with our audience, and that those merchandise areas vary from selling lipstick to graph diamonds. So it's a pretty extensive review of merchandise that we cover. I think the one thing that informs us through all of this is that having a business objective is one thing, but Rebecca totally hit on it, and that is the importance of being authentic. And if you're putting content out there that bores you, your audience is going to be bored. And we have a gut check internally where we're always looking at it and saying, are we excited? Are we emotionally excited about this? Does this make us want to go shopping? You know, we're really fortunate in that we're in a business that inspires so many positive feelings. And if you're putting content out there that's not making somebody feel, you're just not a fashion brand. I think it goes back to that kind of core of creativity.
Carla's anticipated a little bit of my next question. I know from talking to brands that sometimes it's difficult for them to get the traffic that they would like. And surprisingly, even though everyone can publish nowadays, it's still the traditional full-time media and social sites that garner the most traffic and have the highest traffic numbers. So my question for all the panelists is, how do you make your content amazing? How do you get the traffic that you need? And also, with so much data available to you about people's preferences, how do you hyper-target? So we can start with Noah, just go down the line.
Sure. I mean, I guess on the first question about how do you get, or the second part of that question, on the how do you get the content seen, you know, what's interesting about these platforms now is that it's really a function of cost if you choose to go that direction. So, you know, if you're talking about Facebook or Twitter now, or even Tumblr, how you get your content seen is, one option is to just pay for it, right? And the content will be seen. The question is, you know, will it be engaged? Will it be shared? On Twitter specifically, you're just going to pay for engagements around that content. You know, on the how do you actually figure out what to be creating and how do you create amazing content? Well, a lot of you know, what we've been thinking about is how do you start to combine both the content that you have, the beautiful stuff, interesting stuff. We call it stock. So we talk about stock and flow as the way to think about content on the web, and stock is the durable stuff. It's photography, it's a video, it's something that's going to be meaningful in 3 months or 3 years. And then flow is sort of everything else. It's the quick hits, it's the tweets and the Facebook updates and everything else. And so how do you find the right balance between those two to actually sort of both bring new audience in with the stock and then keep them engaged when they keep coming back with the flow?
And I think it's really important, you know, when you're on these different channels to really be paying attention to your followers and listening to what they want to see. So, you know, we'll get feedback from a lot of brands that really experiment with the things that they're putting out there. You know, for fashion brands particularly, showing content, showing sneak peeks of, you know, clothes that are coming up in the next line, showing designers behind the scenes working on sketches, previews of shows. And you'll experiment with different things, and you want to have a mix of all of those things to really, you know, kind of give a window into what's happening, but pay attention to what's getting the most likes, to what's getting, you know, retweeted, what's, you know, really being shared out there, and continue to, you know, evolve what you're sharing to meet what's needed. You know, a lot of platforms do allow for, you know, going specific. So for Instagram, for say, you know, there are, like the Huffington Post, for example, has the Huffington Post, but they have HuffPost Tech, HuffPost Politics, HuffPost Fashion. You know, you can really dig deep into those verticals that people really want to start engaging on a deeper level, but keep the higher brand, you know, conversation at a brand level rather than kind of digging into those deeper things. But, you know, I think really paying attention to your followers and what they want to engage with you about is important.
And I would just add to that, I think, you know, yes, there are aspects of social media that are distinct to the platform, but I think there are also aspects to it that I think are just good basic marketing, which is what is exciting that's going on and how do you amplify that? I mean, one thing that we did recently, we partnered with the Man Repeller to launch an exclusive collection of Christian Louboutin shoes in our store. And we decided to have fun with it. We just put her in the window. It went crazy. She started modeling shoes in the window. It went crazy. It was traditional marketing, but we captured it through our social media channels. We Instagrammed images out, we tweeted about it, we put it on Tumblr, we asked people to kind of caption the pictures that we put out. It's having that gut instinct of what is the core message that you're trying to convey and using that discipline to figure out what is the best strategy. Because oftentimes, 20 tweets that go out that don't have anything meaningful to say versus one that really captures what you're about, and we see it. It's really quality. Yes, you want to have a basic number of tweets and images, but don't lose sight of putting something exciting out there.
I think the two things for us is staying flexible, listening to our customer, and being innovative. So when we first started the blog, it was really pretty, and no one was sharing or retweeting, and our marketing manager came in and said, this is not the right format. I was like, but it's so beautiful to look at, and I love it. And he's like, this isn't how people want to see your content. So he completely rehauled Minkette, and from there, almost immediately, you saw on a daily basis people sharing, retweeting, liking things more than they ever had, and about 30% of our traffic from our website now goes to Minkette. So I think had we not stayed flexible, or had I held on to the aesthetics are everything, then we wouldn't have ever engaged our customer the way that we're engaging her now, and it's showing in our numbers drastically changing.